This is Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. Thank you so much for joining us today for Live with Annie. As usual, we've started the stream a bit early. This helps us get everything set up and broadcasting properly to our various platforms. You can find a countdown clock on the screen showing how long it will be until we actually go live. While you wait, please connect with us and other viewers in the chat. Let us know where you are from and whether you're a new or longtime viewer. We'll see you live soon! Thanks again for joining us for Live with Annie. We are so happy to have you with us today. While you wait for the program to start, we hope you'll enjoy the content playing on screen. There's so much inspiration, so take a moment to tell us what you love in the chat. Don't forget there is a countdown clock on the screen so you know how long until we go live. it's Annie again, reminding you that we'll be going live with this week's episode shortly. There is a countdown clock on the screen showing how much time is left. You've got just enough time to grab some water or a beverage of your choice and a snack, and to connect with us in the chat. We'd love to hear what you've been working on this week. Again, it's Annie, back to remind you that we'll be starting this week's live very shortly. We've got a really fun episode planned for today, and we'll see you soon. Hi, I'm Annie of ByAnnie.com and Patterns by Annie. We are so excited to be back for episode 1 of season 4 of Live with Annie. We have got lots of fun planned for this year and can't wait to get started. In today's episode, I am going to show some of my favorite quilts, talk about their inspiration, discuss some of the challenges I faced in creating them, and offer you a chance to get your creative juices flowing for the new year. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. It's always a treat to see our regular viewers joining us from all over the world and to welcome new viewers to our community too. We know there are lots of things you could be doing with this time, and the fact that you make time to be with us really means a lot to all of us. If you know someone else who you think might enjoy the information that we share, please be sure to tell them about Live with Annie too. The easiest way to do that is to just tag them while you're watching. That will take them directly to the episode so they can watch it too. Also, we love reading your comments, so please be sure to interact with us throughout this presentation. Tell us what you think about what we're showing, share your tips and tricks, and tell us what projects you are working on. We want to know what you think, and we love learning from you too. And be sure to add any questions you might have in the comments or chat, and we will do our best to answer them before we close. In our last episode, which was way back in early December of last year, we had a sew-along for our free pattern wristlet strap. The pattern includes instructions for straps in two versions, either flat or folded, and you can use them to turn a wallet, clutch, or small pouch into a wristlet and a snap. Or you can use them independently to hold a ring of keys. If you missed that episode or want to watch it again, remember that you can find all the previous 137 episodes of Live with Annie on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, or at ByAnnie.com. And we'll put up all the links to make them easy for you to find. I got a new water bottle. And I don't have to pour water down my front when I use it, so that should be a good thing. So I just want to wish everybody a very happy New Year. It does seem like forever since we were together. I was out of the office for most of the month of December, but during that time I really enjoyed keeping up with all of you on social media and seeing the wonderful ByAnnie bags that were gifted to loved ones over the holidays. There had to be some very happy people receiving those amazing bags and other items, and I can assure you that they will think of you every time that they use them. I hope you all took some time to relax and recoup, and that you are ready now for another year of creativity and sewing. So for many years, my New Year's Day tradition was to start a new project. Everyone else was watching football, and that was my chance to get away and go make plans for something new. And that new project was often a quilt that was inspired by a challenge from my quilt guild. Those quilts are still some of my very favorite quilts, and the challenge of designing something based on a set of rules or parameters was a really great way for me to learn and use new techniques, move outside my comfort zone, challenge myself to create an interesting design, and accomplish all that within a deadline. So I thought it would be fun today to show you some of those quilts and talk about the challenges I faced in their design and construction. So I joined my local quilt guild, the Dixie Quilt Guild, in the late 1990s, and I became a very active member of the guild. I held almost every office in the guild, sometimes more than one at a time, and I made lots of really wonderful friends. Business and family responsibilities have prevented me from participating in guild activities for the past few years, but I am still really thankful for all the skills and inspiration that I received through them. One of my very favorite activities in the guild was the annual challenge that members were encouraged to join. Some years the challenge was to include a particular fabric in a quilt. Other years it was to use a specific pattern. Well, in 1998-99, our guild started in September and ended in September, so it spanned 2 years, our guild year. My friend Jane and I were in charge of the Challenge Quilt Project, and we decided to mix things up a bit. So we had attended the Desert Quilts of Las Vegas quilt show, and while we were there, we saw a quilt that was made from a challenge that the guild had issued. And I actually have a picture of it in my quilt scrapbook. So I'm going to try and get this so that Jake can key in on this. So here's a picture of that quilt. And the challenge that was given to the members when they made this was to create a quilt using any techniques and fabrics of your choice, but it needed to contain 6 rows and they had to be in a particular order. So row 1 was supposed to be squares and or rectangles. Row 2 was something celestial, so you can see this quilter did stars. Row 3 was something depicting home or family, and she did houses. Row 4 was something from nature, she did trees. Row 5 was your choice, and she did a bird and a vine. And then row 6 was squares and or rectangles. And we really loved that idea, and we thought there are so many ways that people can interpret it, so we decided to just basically copy that idea for our guild challenge. So when we announced the challenge, we also included some notes in the rules. One of them was, Mr. Webster defines row as a series of objects placed next to each other, usually but not necessarily in a straight line or succession without a break or gap. And celestial is defined as of or relating to the sky or heavens, or supremely good or sublime. So this was my first time to enter a guild challenge, and I knew that I didn't want to just make rows of blocks. I wanted to do something interesting. I also wanted to incorporate some new techniques in applique that I had learned through guild workshops and in a class with Charlotte War Anderson. I also really wanted to stretch myself to make something that was different. So in a great children's coloring book that I had in my collection, I had found a picture that interpreted Robert Louis Stevenson's poem, My Bed is Like a Boat. And I was inspired to interpret that drawing into a quilt. Let me tell you, figuring out the colors, the shading, and the patterns was a huge challenge for me. So if you look at this, you can see that my rows are a bit free-flowing, but I managed to fit them all in. So for row 1, I basically just did squares of dark blues to represent the sky. Row 2, which was supposed to be something celestial, continued those rows and then added a moon and some stars. Row 3, which was to depict home and family, I used to put the child in his bed with a teddy bear. He's got a quilt on the bed, and his teddy bear is going to accompany him on his journey. The quilt on the bed was probably the very hardest part of the design for me. I tried all kinds of patterned fabrics. Nothing seemed to look right. And finally, on a whim, Glo, can you go down? I held up some 9-patch blocks that I'd made and abandoned for another project. And when I held them out, I thought, okay, the scale looks good for this project, the color goes good with everything else, and I've got a way that I can use those orphan blocks. I even had Casey climb in bed with a quilt so I could figure out how to kind of drape it and create some folds in it. Then I went down to the bottom, and for rows 4 and 5, I kind of combined those. They were supposed to be something from nature and your choice, and I used those to create the waves below the bed. And then for row 6, which was supposed to be squares or rectangles again, I used half square triangles, but I set them on point to create a border at the bottom and kind of simulate the waves again. After I was done with all my rows, I added a border all the way around the quilt, and I used a Pigma pen to write the words of the poem. And to add interest to that border, I appliqued a little sailboat that I had fussy cut from a nautical fabric, another little boat, some birds, some fish, added a little fish down here, and finished that and filled in some of the empty spaces with those. So all of the applique on this quilt was done by hand using turned edge and reverse applique techniques. I also hand quilted it. And the Guild provided each entry in the challenge a commemorative label to stitch on the back of the quilt, which you can see here. And winners also received a special ribbon that was made by our past president, Virginia Olson. Well, I was completely blown away when it came time to announce the prizes, and I discovered that I had won 3 prizes for my quilt. So here you can see the beautiful ribbons that Virginia made. So I received Viewer's Choice, winner of the first time entry, and winner of the best theme. So that was really a fun day and a fun quilt to make. I gave this quilt to my grandson Liam. It hangs above his bed, and I hope it inspires him to have lots of happy, adventurous dreams. So that again is called My Bed is Like a Little Boat. And the poem is by Robert Louis Stevenson. I think the words were adapted a little bit to fit on the quilt, but fun quilt to make. So that was 1998-99. In 1999-2000, the next year, the challenge fell at a very momentous time in our history, which was the start of a new millennium. So the 1999-2000 challenge was to interpret the theme, the year 2000. And this year, in addition to a Viewer's Choice Award, first and second place awards were granted in 3 different categories. So every year we mixed up how the prizes were done. This time we did first and second prizes for applique quilts, pieced-work quilts, or ones that were a combination of pieced and applique. So here's what I wrote on the label that I added to the back of this quilt. Let me lay this out so you can see it. So you can see, again, they gave us a commemorative label that we could put on the back, and then I typed up a story about the quilt and printed a label that I attached to the back too. So go back just a little bit, Glo. So here's what I wrote. To me, the year 2000 is the symbol of a future bright with potential and promise for anyone who has the vision, desire, energy, and dedication to reach for it. This quote is my motto for the new millennium. And I took the quote and put it on the quilt. So it goes, only as high as I reach can I grow, only as far as I seek can I go, only as deep as I look can I see, and only as much as I dream can I be, which I thought was just a wonderful words to live by. So to interpret each line of the quote, I created a block that were inspired by drawings by one of my favorite artists, Mary Engelbright. I have purchased her calendars every year for probably 30 years, and I just love the designs that she drew. At first I was concerned that the scenes in the drawings would look too old-fashioned for the 3rd millennium, but then I decided that I really liked that symbolism, that no matter what the millennium, our lives will basically stay the same. We'll still have little girls, grandmas in old-fashioned clothes, dogs, dreams as big as the universe, and goals as high as the stars. So I used a combination of applique and piecing for this quilt. And to make things easy, I chose to use raw edge applique rather than needle turn applique for this quilt. I used a light table and an applique pressing sheet to create the figures to go on each of those blocks. And then once I had the block assembled, I used a blanket stitch to stitch around each of the fabric pieces so I can throw this in the laundry and wash it if I want. Then I used embroidery and pigma pins to add detail to the pieces and embellished parts of the quilt with ribbons, buttons, and more. So I've got a little airplane button up here in the sky, ribbons tying the aprons and the braid. I've got buttons on the shoe and ribbons tying it, a knob on the window, so lots of fun little additions on that. After I had the blocks made, I added borders to create 4 larger blocks that were joined for the center of the quilt, and I arranged them in order to match the words that went around that part of the quilt. And then I added 3 borders to the quilt. So first just a pink border to frame the center, a black border onto which I appliqued the quote, and then a final border that I made out of half square triangles to bring in all those colors and add some color to the outside. So trying to figure out how to arrange the blocks and the words on this quilt took a fair amount of time, because when I did the words, I didn't want the words to go all the way around because I didn't want the viewer have to turn their head and read the words upside down. So I finally decided that if I started in the middle left side and did words going around this way across the top and then down, and then started the second part of the quote at that same spot but going down the right side and around, that seemed to work the best. Figuring out then what size to make the words was also a challenge, as they really had to fit in that designated space. So as I recall, I calculated how many square inches of space I had, and then I just started printing at different font sizes until I got words that fit in that amount of space. So this quilt I also hand quilted, and I was really happy to win the first place award in the combination applique and piecework category. So this quilt lives in my office, and it inspires me every single day to reach, seek, look, and dream. So again, that one is called My Millennial Motto. So the theme for the 2001-2002 challenge was What America Means to Me, which was a very fitting theme after the events of September 11th, 2001. Let me get this one laid out so we can see it. This looks like the top up here. So, in keeping with the spirit of freedom that America represents, there weren't any rules, any special fabrics or pattern requirements, or really any limitations on this quilt. So I got inspiration from my quilt from a quote by the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And it says, "America is not a blanket, one piece of unbroken cloth. America is more like a quilt. Many patches, many colors, many sizes, all held together by a common thread." And I knew right away when I started planning this that I was going to do something using Karen Stone's New York Beauty block pattern, because I wanted to recognize all of those who had lost their lives in the tragic events of September 11th. I'd already made a few of the blocks. This one in particular was one when I was trying to figure out the year 2000's challenge quilt. So you can see I've got fabric here that has the year 2000 on it, and I discarded those on that quilt, but I still had them sitting there, so I set out a way to incorporate those blocks into my quilt, and in the end decided to just do all New York Beauty blocks. So what I loved about her pattern is that they're all New York Beauty, but each one of them is a different design, so it never got boring making it. And it was really fun to find fabrics and have particular themes. This is one that I thought was really funny. This was cell phones when they first came out. And you can see how different they look from the cell phones that we have today. I did one with kids in school, one with quilters, all the things that America means to me. So when I went to put it together, I decided to set the blocks a bit skewed to represent how that day shook the foundations of our country. And the setting triangles then that square up the blocks form stars that show that even though our country took a hit that rattled us, our spirit of togetherness and survival shone through and got us back on track. So the many colors and fabrics that I used really, I think, represent the wonderful diversity of our country. From children going to school, to men and women in blue pinstripe suits going to work in high-rise buildings, to farmers feeding the chickens. We've got that way up here, the chickens and the eggs. America is just a delightful mix of people and cultures, all of those things united by a common belief in freedom and opportunity. This was a really fun quilt to make. I machine pieced it using paper piecing patterns that were designed by Karen Stone, and then I quilted it by hand using a variegated cotton thread. So in most places I just went around the parts of the block, and then I did some different designs in the border. In fact, I just noticed this. I actually did the name of the quilt here in the quilting. So it says, "America is a quilt." I don't know if I put my name and the date in there anywhere. It doesn't look like it, but I believe I did put that all on a label that I added to the back. All right. The next year, in 2000-2003, the challenge rules were really simple. We were given a fat quarter of this colorful fabric, the one that has the balls on it, and we were told we could make a quilt of any size or shape up to 144 inches around. So there were lots of entries in this challenge. And I decided that they were balls, so I decided to depict a juggler, symbolizing our attempts to balance the balls of life. So I drew the juggler myself, and then I used inspiration from my trusty Mary Engelbreit calendar collection for the rest. So at the center of the quilt is me, the juggler, concentrating hard on keeping some balls in the air. So the ones that I'm going to concentrate on keeping in the air were work, play, rest, family, friends, and self. And then there are some balls that I decided to let drop. Those were completion, perfection, and expectations. So those are ones I'm not going to worry about. I'm going to try and keep the rest of this balanced and going. So and then I decided to put my whole family on the quilt. So here's my husband, Al, who always considered himself to be the ringmaster. He's in the bottom corner trying to direct us all, but if you notice, really no one's paying a whole lot of attention to him, but he's there. This is my daughter Havala. She's balancing on top of a big ball. She was just about ready to graduate from Dartmouth. She was preparing to go to the Czech Republic to work, so she was definitely learning all about balance. And then here's my son Casey, who always tends to go his own way, and he's up here swinging on a trapeze at the top, ready to face all of life's adventure. Down in this bottom corner, I put our dog Abby and our friend Jan, who lived with us, and they're ready to catch whatever falls. So I used a needle turn applique on this one and machine piecing to make the quilt. I embroidered the words on the balls this time rather than just using a Pigma pen, and I added a few other embellishments like some ribbon roses in Havala's hair and on her skirt. Looks like I did some yarn to make bangs in her hair, and I gave Al a little flower in his lapel. So this was a really fun one to make. Again, I hand quilted this one. I used variegated thread in the black parts and then matching threads in the other, and it won first place in the combination pieced and applique category. So this one also hangs in my office like my millennial motto, and it reminds me every day of what's important. All right, for the 2003-2004 challenge, we were given a fat quarter of a leopard spot material, so this particular fabric right here. And we were just directed to use that in our quilt. So I used the fabric as a border around my center panel and also between the rows in my garden. So inspiration again for this came from Mary Englebright, also a quilt that Mary Lou Weedman had done, and an email that I'd received that had a fun quote on it about vegetables, basically. So at this point, I had taken a drawing class through community schools, and that gave me the confidence to draw my own design, and that was challenging for sure. But I incorporated, again, a quote in here. So the name of this quilt is A Quilter's Garden, and it says, "Water freely with creativity and cultivate with patience. There is much fruit in your garden, and you reap what you sow." And then around the border, I added some words using some creative license in the spelling. So it says, "Plant 2 rows of lettuce. Let us be adventurous and persistent. Plant a row of squash. Squash indecision. We must have turnips in time. Turnip to encourage others. Time to imagine. Time to laugh and play. And every garden needs berries and beets. Berry jealousy, berry gossip and grumbling, beet fear." And then at the bottom, plant 1 row of carrots, care at all times. Finish with a row of peas, peace of heart, mind, and soul. So I really had a lot of fun creating all the various vegetables, choosing fabrics for them. I loved using this little plaid and the stripe for the beets and the carrots. And since there were so many words on this quilt, there was no way I was going to embroider or applique them all. So on this one, I printed the words onto fabric using my inkjet printer. I just ironed 8.5 by 11-inch sheets of paper of fabric onto freezer paper, and then fed them through my inkjet printer to print the words that I had typed up. And you'll see I've got, divisions in. Once I had them printed, then I cut them into strips and just sewed them together to make the various parts of the quilt. Then I added appliqued and embroidered ladybugs and bees going around the quilt, and I hand quilted this one using mostly just simple cross-hatching and some echo quilting. I can see I kind of gave up. I was doing some quilting around these and didn't do too much in here. I must have run out of time on this one, so maybe someday I'll go back and add a little more quilting in these areas. This quilt also won first place in the combination original design category, and this one hangs in my home studio and reminds me to be patient and to keep going and growing. You'll notice there's one more quilt behind me. This is another challenge quilt that I made at some point. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a label on it, and I don't remember when I made it and didn't take the time to go research it, but I do remember that the challenge for this particular quilt was to make a monochromatic quilt. So for it, I scanned a photo of my husband, and then I used a software program called Quilted Photo Deluxe to create a pattern. So what it does is it takes the picture that you scan in and it prints out a grid that has all the pieces numbered, with 1 being the lowest value. You tell it how many fabrics you want to use. I think I usually did like 24 fabrics, so I'd have 8 lights, 8 mediums, 8 darks, but it would gradate those from the lightest to the darkest. Then you start cutting out fabrics and you scan those to determine what their values are. And then it's just kind of like paint by number. You just put the number 1 fabric where the number 1 square is, the number 24 fabric where the number 24 square is, and you end up with a really kind of abstract quilt. So I remember this was the very first time I had tried this technique, and I was in my studio working, and I had the pattern on my table, and I think you put down like a lightweight thing that you can see through, that you put the squares on, and I was working on it, and all I could see was a mass of blue squares. And my husband walked into the room and stopped and said, "Oh my gosh, that's me." He could see from the distance, he could see that it was him. So I have taught lots of classes on this technique. I've made quilts of flowers, quilts of people, all kinds of things. They're all really unique and amazing and really fun to do and easy too. So it's software that's designed by Tammy Bowser. It's called Quilted Photo Express or Quilted Photo Deluxe. There's 2 different versions. We'll put up the website so you can check it out. It's just go to howtosew.art.com, and she's got lots of examples on there of things that you can do. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed that little mini trunk show and seeing some of my favorite quilts. I have to say that participating in these annual challenges was so much fun, and it really honed my skills and taught me to think outside the box. I also discovered that having a set challenge with a deadline was extremely effective for me, because it made me focus on the project and get it done rather than stuff it in the corner and move on to another project. It also made me focus on doing my best work, because I knew others were going to be looking at it and judging it. So I decided that I am going to give you a challenge too. As you may have noticed, each of these quilts featured 2 main things: people and/or words. Neither of those things are ones that have been incorporated much into ByAnnie projects, but why couldn't they be? So over the next month, I challenge you to make a ByAnnie project that includes words and/or people. You can use any technique that you'd like: applique, embroidery, or piecing. You can even use fabric that's printed with words or pieces. And to keep things really simple, I am only going to give you 1 restriction. You must use soft and stable in your project. There are no size restrictions. You can make a flat project like a placemat, a small wall hanging, or a project bag. Our Free Patterns Call Me or Peacekeeper might be perfect to add some words or people to. Or you could make a dimensional project. And again, our Petit Four baskets, Easy Does It, those are both free patterns. Our Right Stuff pattern, I think, would be a really fun one to add some words to. I can see all kinds of ways to add words or people to any ByAnnie project. So to enter your project in the challenge, just submit photos and your story in our monthly photo contest, and you'll find all the details at our website. Just click on the tab at the top that says Photo Contest/Gallery, and it will direct you how to attach photos and enter your notes. So be sure to include a note in the comments that it's an entry in the January challenge, and also to tell us about your inspiration and your process. So entries are due by Wednesday, January 31st, and we will announce winners and prizes on Live with Annie on Wednesday, February 7th. So over the rest of this month, we are going to share some tips and techniques to help you. So next week, I'm planning to show you how to make freeform pieced letters, what I did on this little quilt, to add a name or words to a project. So these are just kind of sewn as you go, fun to do, great for using up some scraps. The following week, I am planning to show how to construct a person or something using fusible raw edge applique, including how to finish the edges with a blanket stitch. The whole idea for this just came to me yesterday, so that's really all I figured out so far. But if I get my act together, maybe the next week I'll focus on using embroidery machine embroidery on a ByAnnie project, or I'll find somebody amazing to do that for me. Anyway, I think it should all be lots of fun. I hope you will accept the challenge and join in it with me. So, thank you so much for all that. It looks like there are a few questions here, so let's run through those. First is, how do you make your story labels? Super easy to do. I go into my computer. I was using Publisher at the time that I did most of the labels on these. Let me find one that's done here. That's not terribly exciting. Let's pull up a different one. This one has some little artwork on it. So I opened Publisher. I added a graphic that had a little border on it. I typed up what I wanted it to say, and then I took my fabric that I want it to print onto. I ironed it to a piece of freezer paper. You have to make sure that you don't have any loose threads hanging out the edges. So after I iron that on really good, I go around with my rotary cutter and trim it a little bit to size. And then you just run it through your printer as if it was a piece of paper. You do need to make a few adjustments to it. For instance, you want to pick that you're printing on a thick paper, or like your machine will tell you what the options are, but something that will open up the things a little bit so that it'll pull it through a little bit better. But then you iron it when you're done, and they're washable, and you pull away the freezer paper, so it's just a piece of fabric that's left. So super easy to do. This one, I had some pre-printed labels, and I just wrote the name on it and signed it and dated it using a pigment pen. So that's another super easy way to do it. The next question is, when do you sleep? I do try to sleep, and I've tried to sleep 7 to 8 hours a night. In these days, I'm not sure that I did, but these were the days before ByAnnie existed, or ByAnnie was really little. ByAnnie was just a little hobby for me to pay for my quilting habit. So when I get involved in one of these, I can, work for a long time on it and go, but obviously sleep is important too. When do you have time to develop bags? Again, you will notice that the dates on these ended in about 2002, which is when ByAnnie started growing. So I don't have time to do quilts like this anymore, although looking at these made me really excited about making a quilt again one day. But I'm more excited now about incorporating a few techniques like this into a bag or purse, or a small project that I can use to make something little. So I hope that you will enjoy doing something like that too. And as always, remember that you can ask for patterns for our things, any pattern that you want to use, and supplies for your challenge project or any other project at your local quilt shop. Those shops are such an important part of our sewing and quilting communities, and it really is up to all of us to keep them strong and vibrant. And if they don't have them, they can certainly get them, either from their favorite distributor or from us. So let them know that. We're happy to set up wholesale accounts, so just have them contact us for more information. All right, let's move on now to a special announcement. Randy Jones of Randy's Roost is going to be holding a sew-along, slow-along she calls it, for our pattern Get Out of Town 2.1. Registration is going to begin this Friday, which is January 5th, and registration will end on Saturday, January 20th. The sew-along itself, slow-along, will begin on Saturday, January 27th, and it will run for 7 weeks. So Randy spreads it out so that you've got plenty of time, even if you work or have other responsibilities, to get the project done. And that even includes a week for catching up before the final assembly. It costs just $12 to register, and that's something that Randy does on her own. You can get more information by going just to the ByAnnie Bag Makers group on Facebook, or going to Randy's website, which is randysroost.com, and Randy is spelled with an I. So be sure to check that out. All right, let's move on now to our featured local quilt shop of the week. At ByAnnie, we are all about supporting local quilt shops, and one of our favorite events each year is the Local Quilt Shop Contest, which we celebrate in February. During the contest, we encourage sewists to vote for their favorite quilt shop and share a little bit about what makes them special. Then, to continue the fun and support of local businesses throughout the year, we highlight a store and some of their voter submissions. Today we are traveling to Lusk, Wyoming to Lickety Stitch Quilts, the regional winner for Wyoming. Owner Karen Weisseman has owned the store for 13 years. She has been sewing since childhood and has a passion for fabric, sewing machines of all kinds, and quilting as a lifelong hobby. I need a quick drink. Karen started her shop on Main Street in 2010, then added the building next door in 2017 to more than double the shop space. In 2023, another building was annexed for a classroom and retreat center. Karen tells us, "We are located in the least populated county of the least populated state in the U.S., but visitors are always amazed and surprised to find a quilt shop of this quality and size in Lusk, Wyoming. The shop attracts visitors from all over the states and beyond. Although you can find fabrics of almost every genre, westerns, wildlife, and batiks take front stage. Lickety Stitch Quilts is a full-service shop offering all the supplies to create quilts and other projects, as well as long arm and binding services to finish your quilts. Lickety Stitch sponsors 2 large retreats each spring and fall. The retreats are both in the same week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Often, devoted quilters choose to stay for both sessions. Sounds like fun. 64 seats are available at each retreat, and more information can be found at their website, licketystitchquilts.com. Along with Karen Weisseman, the owner, you will find Jane Filliner and Sarah Willey in attendance most days. All 3 are experienced quilters and can help you with your quilting questions, selecting fabric for a quilt, or quilting advice. Customers who voted for Lickety Stitch Quilts in the 2023 LQS contest raved about the store's friendly and helpful service and excellent selection, especially of Western-themed prints. Paula wrote, "The people, owners, and staff are just so friendly and welcoming. I love their inventory, too. I was on vacation from Florida, and we were driving through town and stopped to check out some shops. I found this lovely shop and came home with a bunch of goodies. All during the pandemic, I was buying fabric from them and shipping it to Florida. I just love them." And Deb said, "They have a great selection of fabrics and are always willing to help. During COVID, they went online and reached out to everyone with a weekly sale and update of new products. They continue that even today. Even though I live 6 hours away, I feel like I am a friend they want to connect with." And Michelle added, "Their customer service is phenomenal. They go out of their way to treat each customer like family." When asked about the impact of the LQS contest on their store, Karen said, "Our customers are always thrilled to see our shop make the news." Lickety Stitch Quilts will have a ByAnnie trunk show on display in the store until January 20th, so be sure to stop in and check it out and tell them Annie sent you. Let's go now to My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop, located in Logan, Utah, the regional winner for Utah in the 2023 LQS contest. Owners Mike and Chris Thurgood operate a physical store as well as a busy online business. Chris, a former elementary school teacher, and Mike, a former international sales manager for a scientific company, decided back in 2011 that they both wanted to start a family business together, and My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop was born. Chris's passion for creating a place for people to come together and be inspired, learn something new, and enjoy each other's company has made My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop a destination spot for people near and far. As a monthly contributor for KSL's Studio 5 for the past 12 years, Chris has also appeared as a guest on The Nate Berkus Show and The Rachel Ray Show. Her work is published in magazines and countless hours of video content on YouTube. Despite the effects of the pandemic, in August 2020, a new warehouse was opened in Smithfield, Utah, to facilitate an ever-growing e-commerce side of the business. My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop is committed to being a leader in sewing, quilting, and all things handmade for years to come. The brick-and-mortar store is located in beautiful Logan, Utah. It carries a full line of designer fabrics, sewing machines, embroidery machines, serger, and long arms. They are also a full-service center for machine repair. They tell us, when you walk through our Girlfriend Green doors, you will be warmly welcomed by our team of girlfriends who can help you find whatever you need. Between the 6 main rooms of our store, from classroom to color wall to the Quilters Cafe, where you can demo any one of our dozens of sewing, embroidery, and long arm machines that we sell. Not local? Not a problem. We'll send you what you need to get quilting. Online shopping is available 24/7 at mygirlfriendsquiltshop.com. We sell a wide variety of fabric, notions, and tools from many companies, including but not limited to Kimberbell, Riley Blake, Moda, Free Spirit, and Ruby Star. We also sell baby lock sewing machines, embroidery machines and sergers, and handy quilter long arms. Our schedule is packed full of events, both in-store and online. We have a daily Facebook Live event called 3 Things at 3, where we teach a new fun project every day, and we have a weekly live sale event on our app and Facebook Live every Wednesday night. Oh my gosh, they are busy. And girlfriends come from all over the country to spend a week creating with us at our annual TUG, which stands for the Ultimate Girlfriends Getaway event. You can always find our full calendar of in-store and online events on our website and reserve your space there. Our staff, who we affectionately call our girlfriends, and guy friends of course, is comprised of 55 wonderful people between our store and our warehouse. On top of our store staff, in the warehouse we have a full creative team, a kit team, machine and long arm specialists, a full-time long arm quilter, as well as marketing, video, shipping, and fulfillment teams. We truly could not operate without every one of these amazing people. Customers who voted for My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop in the 2023 contest praised the store's friendly and helpful service. Anne wrote, "They are always so willing to help, and they have great customer service. When I was first learning to use my baby lock machine, I was pretty discouraged because I had never had such a nice sewing machine before. They sat down with me and talked me through all my concerns. Now they always know me by name and ask how I'm doing and what I am working on. They are amazing." Judy agreed and added, "I love their projects, love their friendliness and willingness to share and help answer questions. They have great sales and just about everything I need. Every time I go in the store, they treat me like a long-lost friend. I enjoy shopping there." And Alyssa summed it up saying, "They truly are girlfriends to their customers." Awesome customer service and always coming up with something new and fun. So My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop will have their ByAnnie trunk show on display from January 1st to February 16th, so be sure to stop in and check it out and give Sweet Chris a big hug from me. She is such a great lady, and I loved hearing all about everything they do. They are busy, busy, busy people. Thank you again to everyone who joined us today. We are going to be back next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time with another fun episode of Live with Annie. As I said, we will have a lesson in how to make freeform letters and words using scraps of fabric in your sewing machine. So if you've ever wanted to add a name or a quote to a project, you'll appreciate learning this useful technique. And until then, happy stitching!